master the business of speaking with your hosts, Taylor and Austin. You're listening to Technically Speaking.
Do you ever feel like your website is just a glorified brochure and doesn't really perform the way you want it to? Not generating leads, contact form submissions, meetings, booked. It's just kind of a place people go after you've sold something. Well, just know that you're not alone, and there is a way to turn that around and truly make your website function like a full-time sales team. And in today's episode, we are uncovering just that. We've invited on Danielle Tucker, the founder of professionalspeakerswebsites.com, who has been specializing in designing personally branded websites for the last 8 years and creates masterpieces of websites that actually gets results and are focused on lead generation. And today, Danielle unpacks exactly what it takes to build a website like that, some of the materials that you need for that website to be effective, and how to go about it in a really cost-effective way that doesn't mean you need tens of thousands of dollars to spend on a website. So what's not to love about that? Let's dive in. As always, stick around until the end for some awesome resources Danielle has, and we hope you enjoy this one. See you in there. Wow,
Boom.
We made it. Look at us go.
We're live. I know.
Woo.
Holy cow.
Awesome.
So proud
Man,
of us.
Another show. Look at us go. We've only done it 100 times. How bad can we screw up at this point, huh?
You know, I'm still amazed though. Every time we actually get it, I'm like, holy cow, look at us. We got it.
Let's
done.
go. Yeah, it's like impressive. Yeah. I'm sure the
Oh.
listeners are getting used to our like, wow, we're live. Look at us go. Like almost as if like that's a miracle.
That's right. It's still surprising. But Danielle, great to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us on our episode today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I've had so much fun already just chatting with you guys before we hit record. So I'm even more excited for our conversation now.
Oh, well, that's good. You know, we've got a lot of friends that do a lot of podcasting, and they say that one of their biggest fears, and when they know that it's going to be a rough episode, is because the talk before the podcast radically changes when the podcast actually starts recording.
Oh, goodness.
So maybe famous last words, Danielle. I guess we'll see how this turns out.
Well, let's just hope and pray and have our fingers crossed that this is going to be a great episode. So
it's going to be awesome.
We're going to find out.
Yeah. You know, we were talking about a few things before the show. One of them was tea, and we had a little bonding moment there. So very grateful for that. Something that I didn't ask you then that I want to ask you now, though. Have you ever tried matcha tea?
Oh, yes. I've had matcha tea. Actually, I don't do that well with caffeine. So my matcha tea, like the time span of me having it was very short-lived, but it tasted really good. So I guess that's what matters most.
Well, I am a moron when it comes to tea. Is this the green stuff? Looks like ground up vegetables.
It's sort of. I mean, they just
leaf juice.
I mean, basically, they like turn it into powder. You like mix the leaf powder in. Here's why I ask though, and why it's interesting. And I ask specifically because you're a marketer, but there's like this whole trope in the marketing world, and especially in like the digital nomad lifestyle places like in Bali and whatever, where matcha is a lot more common. But matcha has this interesting chemical profile where it has both caffeine and it has this other chemical compound. I think it's called L-theanine, but basically it calms your nervous system. So the caffeine gives you focus and boosts your energy, but the L-theanine sort of like brings your nervous system back down. It's why samurais used to drink it back in the day, but it's really popular amongst people that sit in front of their keyboard because you can be focused, but without the jitters. Now, with the given, illumination you just gave us around your caffeine, maybe still not the best move. But either way, matcha's awesome. So for those of you listening that like matcha, shout out. There's not very many of us, so
yeah,
have to give it a try.
Matcha's really good. Moringa is also another really good one. Moringa. Now that one's like Moringa tea. Have you had Moringa before?
What is that?
Oh, no. It's like Red Bull, but natural, leafy green tea. It's very similar to matcha, but it's considered like a miracle plant. It's called like the miracle tree. And it's because it has like all these different vitamins and minerals in like a little teaspoon for like tea and stuff. So yeah, that one's pretty good too, but I can only have so much of it. It tastes good.
Wow. Man, I'm going to totally try that. Today. Yeah, I drink like 5 cups of coffee a day. So like this is probably would be a downsize in terms of total caffeine intake for me, which would probably be a good thing because I'm already a little manic. So
for sure. Yeah. Well, here we are. Well, guys, unfortunately, we're not talking about tea all day. Although, let us know if you want an episode. We'll probably drum one up for you. But we're here to talk about websites. And, websites can be a little elusive, I feel like sometimes, especially for those who maybe don't make it like their core expertise to build them all day long and figure out what makes them work and generate leads and all the things a website should do. So this is going to be a super fun episode. But first, how did you get into the world of helping experts, speakers, coaches, consultants, personal brands, let's say, build websites? Like, did you just wake up one day and say like, oh, that's what I want to do when I grow up? Or did you stumble into it? What was the process like?
Yeah, well, I would say it's a little bit of all of that, but just I guess starting from the beginning is probably the best place to start. So, at the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, my husband and I, we just got married. We sold everything we had and we decided to book one-way tickets to South Africa. So, this was like the first leap into online business, entrepreneurship, building business abroad. And also during this time was when I really started to understand the importance and power of building an intentional personal brand so that you can grow a business and impact more people and, do all of the amazing things that we're all called to do. So, in the midst of living abroad, building business online and growing my personal brand, there were a lot of challenges that I found that made it really difficult. And so, in particular, just, figuring out how to build a website that would build authority, build trust with people, guide people to take action in a way that would result in positive conversations and things like that. And so, but when I came to a point when I realized how a website is really supposed to function and like how to intentionally use it to grow a business and to build a personal brand, that was when everything changed for me. And so I actually do not live abroad right now. I lived abroad for about 7 years. I spent some time in Africa, Botswana, Malawi, South America, and Ecuador. And now I'm currently located here in Huntsville, Alabama. And that's what I do is I help to support thought leading entrepreneurs to grow their personal brand so that they can book more speaking opportunities as well.
Wow.
Sweet.
Holy cow.
What a journey.
Cool journey.
Yeah, seriously.
Yes.
Yeah, man. From
I've seen a lot of really
selling
cool
everything. I bet. Holy cow.
Like
so did you go like full on minimalist when you first left the States? Were you like, you said you sold everything. So like, what does everything really mean?
Yes, everything.
Wow.
Like our washer, our dryer, like everything. We left the country with like 4 suitcases and like savings, and we're like, okay, well, guess we got to figure it out. So it was definitely, it was very eye-opening. It was scary. And it was also, we were put in a lot of situations to where we're like, if we don't figure this out, like, what are we going to do? Like, there's no safety net. So it was very, we were put into positions to where we literally had to create the solution that we were looking for in order to get to that next step that we wanted to be in. So yeah, it was scary.
Nice.
And I think also really helped to build that muscle of resilience when it comes to business and entrepreneurship.
Yeah, wow. It's like a rite of passage almost, like you just realize what you're capable of after all of that.
Yeah, it was intense for sure. Like when I think back to it, I'm just like, how in the world do we do all of those things? Like,
there's something to be said about necessity though. Like, as you said, like you have no choice. You burned your boats. Like, what are you supposed to do? You have to go make it work. And, like humans are resilient and creative beings. And when given a real serious problem and no alternative but to solve the problem, well, you'll probably figure out a way to do it. Sounds like it totally did for you.
Yes. And the process of like figuring it out does not always feel exciting. It's not always fun, but I think the reward on the other side always feels so good, being able to look back and be like, wow, like we actually did that, or, I did that, or I did something that was super scary, but I'm not, like I'm okay on the other side of it. Feels really good to do. So yeah, totally agree with that.
That's the truth, both professionally and personally. So,
Yeah.
all right.
Mhm.
Well, you said one thing. You said at one point you realized how a website should be functioning.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah,
feel like
should.
that, it means like there's a way that is the wrong way relative to the right way, or at least righter than the wrong way. So, can you elaborate a little bit for us? Like, what was that realization? What was the keystone that brought it together for you?
Yes. So when I first entered into the personal branding online space, a lot of what I saw was pretty looking websites. And when you first come in and you first see all these amazing websites, you think, okay, maybe a great looking website is all it takes to grow a business or to attract the right fit clients that you want. And I quickly learned that that is not the case. And so, really, what the difference is not just having a pretty website, but having a website that is strategically functioning to serve you in attracting more of your right fit clients and really serving as an intentional tool within your sales process. So, a lot goes into a really intentional and successful website. Of course, having nice visuals is part of it, but making sure that you understand what your purpose is for why you have the website in the first place. Like what I've found is like one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of people make is they want to have a website, they want to just put it up there because maybe they have leads and they don't have a place to send people. So they realize like, oh, snap, like I need to get something up there. So it's a really quick thing. But in order to have a website that's really intentional, you need to make sure that you first have a clear end goal in mind. And so I always love to describe it as you have your end goal and then you work backwards based on the actions that you're wanting people to take when they come to your website. So this determines how many pages you have. This determines how you're guiding people through each of those pages, and even the call to actions or like the specific message that you're telling them to do or the action you're telling them to take to reach that specific end goal. So I think just thinking about a website as more than just something that's supposed to look pretty, but instead thinking about it as a really intentional sales tool that is meant to guide people through a journey to work with you. So that's how I would
Nice.
do it.
That's awesome. I love that. I know Taylor's over there just like feeling the vibe off of what you just said.
Of course.
He says all the time that you go ahead, Taylor. I mean, you're going to say what I was just about to quote you saying.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. So I say all the time that your website needs to function like a full-time sales team. Like it shouldn't be just like a business card, right? Like a brochure. It's not just information, it's action. It's a process a journey, as you said, that you're guiding people towards so that they actually take that action. And then your end goal then obviously is met, which actually leads me to a question. What are like common end goals, quote unquote, that you see in a website with the clients that you've worked with? Can you give us some examples?
Yes, of course. So, one of the most common, I would say, is to complete a contact form. Now,
Sure.
I love giving this example because speaker flow would be like the obvious next step to having the contact form. But really, if your main goal is to just get someone on the phone, you will want to give them a call to action that says, complete the form, let's schedule a call. And then from there, you have the sales conversation. Some other examples that I would give are sometimes I have clients who are wanting to sell products on their website. So maybe like they have a course or they have t-shirts or something like that. That's another call to action. And then maybe another would be if you're wanting to like grow your email list. So you provide a free resource. You give an invitation saying, hey, enter your name and email, join the email list, and I'll provide this free resource for you. So that's another example of how you can guide people through your website by using really intentional call to actions.
Heck yeah. Okay.
Nice.
And so I have opinions about this next question.
Yes.
So let me just preface you with that. I'm sure you will too. What do you think about call to actions that are like the ultimate end of the sales process. For example, one thing I see all the time in speakers' websites is book me to speak now. What are your opinions on the end, like make a sale that's not a product but a high ticket service type of call to action, like book me now? What are your thoughts?
That is a great question. I would say the most important thing, from my perspective, I would say the most important thing is to use messaging that you believe your visitors are going to resonate with. So if that is something that a site visitor would not see a problem with, and they'd be like, oh yeah, this is the obvious next step to book someone, and that's what's going to give them the confidence to take the action of clicking the button, then I would say that that seems like a pretty clear next step, within the process. In terms of the actual act of booking someone now to speak, the actual process looks a lot different once they completed the form. Like there's a lot of different steps after that point of saying yes through a form that people should also be aware of, like the user experience after someone hits the button. We could go down like a whole rabbit hole with that. But I would say just like making sure that when someone's on your website, using verbiage as your call to action that's going to make sense to them and is going to be very clear of what they can expect after they take that action.
Man, I love what you said right there, because they need the confidence to click the button. And the reason why I go down the book now example, just for our listeners, is no one is ready to book you right now when they land on your website. They need to have a call with you first. They need to schedule a meeting, have a contact form. Now, if you're at the point, though, where you're on fire, you have hundreds of leads coming in, hundreds of gigs every single year, and it resonates with those people visiting your website to book you right now because you're that type of personality, then it makes sense. And that user is going to have the confidence to click the book now button. But for many of us, we might need a smaller step, like a contact form or an email list or book a meeting with me or something to that effect. So Danielle, you answered that question perfectly. It is always dependent on the person's audience. It's like what gives that person the confidence to actually click that button and then take that next step. I think sometimes we lose sight of like what is the obvious next step that our clients expect when they're on our website. It's kind of hard to read the label of the bottle you're in,
Yeah. I think also sometimes we can be in our own heads about what we think a website should look like or what it should do, that we forget to consider the other person. Like we forget to consider the people that we were creating the website for. And that's another thing I really love to emphasize is like your website isn't just for you. It's for your people that you're speaking to in order to inform them, in order to provide value in a way that's going to make them feel connected with who you are and the solution that you provide to help make their life a lot better. So I think, having it be like a people first type of perspective and not so much just like, I'm the speaker, I'm the author, this is all about me. And instead really thinking about how you can guide someone through an experience that makes them feel, connected with what they're seeing.
Heck yeah.
True that. I love that. So I want to address something that you kind of just alluded to and something that Taylor and I were thinking about while we were preparing for the show. And that's like the proper expectations around having a website and what the results are that it should be delivering for you. And just to give you a little bit of extra context as to where Taylor and I come at this question, like website, and we know this because we have a background in marketing, Taylor more so than myself, but both of us have built websites. We get the gist of how this whole thing should be going down. And it's such a multidisciplinary endeavor building a website, because not only do you have to be really technically savvy to be able to actually build the site. I mean, even with codeless builders like Elementor, which we know both of us are fans of, like you still have to really be good with computers to make that work. So there's the technical acumen, there's the design acumen, because though maybe a pretty website isn't the most important thing, your website should still look good. So there's design elements. Then there's SEO elements. So now we're getting into internet marketing. You have to make sure that the page is laid out well and the copywriting supports the type of people who want to go there. Then there's conversion rate optimization to make sure once people are on your website that it's performing well. Like there's all of these skills that have to get brought to the table to make a perfectly optimized website functional. And one of the most common things that I get told as it relates to having websites built is, yeah, I just pushed my website live, but nobody's submitting any forms yet. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, like there's a lot of different components that go into making that happen. So, from your perspective as somebody who actually builds these websites and may have a hand in multiple of these areas, like what are some reasonable expectations that people should have going into the process of getting a new website up?
Yes. How I like to describe the website is we actually touched on this a little bit, but I consider it your number one sales tool. And when you think of it in terms of the flow or the journey of someone interacting with you, we think of it as a home base, so like a place where people can be informed, where you can nurture them, and you can guide them to take a clear next step. Now, in the sequence of how this relationship works with people who are engaging with you, you also have entry points into your website. So I call these website traffic drivers. So this could be your blog, somebody finding a blog post on Google. This could be social media. Someone sees a LinkedIn article and they're like, "Oh wow, like let me learn more about this person." Oh, they click to your website. It could be an email signature. Maybe someone has, you've connected with someone on email, they see your signature, and now they click the link and they go to your website. So it's important to realize that you have your website to inform and to nurture people and really provide value information for them to learn more about you, how they can work with you, and how you can solve the problem that they have. And also, in addition to that, we also have different components that are leading people to the website in order to take them one step further in that process within that journey. So I think a lot of times, sometimes people might think that once you get your website up, like it like solves every problem that you could possibly have in your business. And
Build
the
it and they will
website can
come.
definitely solve a lot of problems. There are still other components to take into consideration to make sure that it's working effectively for you. So yeah, that's what I would say is just keeping in mind of your entry points, your like website traffic drivers, and then also making sure that your website is optimized to make it really easy for people to say yes about completing your contact form or getting on your email list and things like that.
Yeah, man, that's perfect. Yeah, we kind of, like Austin said, I think there's a build it and they will come mentality sometimes. You build the thing and, oh, everyone's going to flock to my website and start hiring me. And it's like, well, you gotta build the flock first, and then maybe they'll come and submit some contact forms after that. It's not, and sometimes you have a great, like a pre-established brand, right? You've already have great traffic to your current website. You do a refresh. Yeah, you could probably expect it to perform a little bit better than maybe the past one. But if you're starting from scratch, well, we've got to kind of build up those traffic drivers,
Yeah, we got
and all of this
a little bit more work to do.
yeah, for sure. And, as we're talking about this, like one of the things we try and do as obviously podcast hosts is try and, especially with something like websites where the three of us, we have a collective experience about websites. There's a certain level of expertise we can bring and have a conversation about it. But one of the things I like to think about is like from our listeners' perspectives, who websites maybe aren't their expertise, right? A lot of this can be really overwhelming. I mean, we're talking about SEO and CRO and design and copy, and we're working with personal brands, right? So you have audio visual requirements potentially of the brand, and how do I get the right pictures and the right video? And I think I've seen actually some of our clients go down this rabbit hole. It can kind of feel like a cart versus the horse type of scenario, right? Like I can't redo my website because I don't have the perfect photography or the perfect reel yet for my video. And that needs to correlate to my actual website or some other mix of those things. It can kind of feel, with all the moving parts, pretty daunting to try and tackle a project like that. And so that kind of leads me to like one of my questions, like, do you need strong visual support to have a decent website, especially for somebody starting out as a personal brand, right? If we look at that context, we might not have the best photography yet or the best video production stuff yet. And as we know, that can cost the same amount as a website or lots more than that as well. Do you need to have that professional touch on your audio or visuals that go into a website prior to actually getting a website up? Or do you think it's okay to like get a website up and just start somewhere?
That's a great question. And I actually have a few different perspectives about this, but I'll say for anyone who may be starting off, there is one thing that I would say in terms of visuals is you do need to make sure that the quality of the images that you're using are clear, that they are of high resolution, and they're not grainy or blurry looking when people come on your website. And really, with the way that technology is today, it's not really that difficult to do that with resources that you may have at your disposal, like an iPhone, which I know there's people who will preach against using phones, but if you are starting at a place to where you literally just have to get started, like everyone starts somewhere. Until you get to a point to where you're able to invest in professional headshots and things like that, which is what I actually would recommend. Like start with where you are, but make sure that it is done with a level of excellence in the best possible way that can be done. So that's what I would say for anyone who maybe just get started, but just understand that like the quality of imagery that is on the website, yes, it definitely does play into the success of like how someone's experience is when they are coming and when they're seeing your website. And I also want to say that when it comes to the visual component, sometimes it can feel a little overwhelming when we think of a website project. Like there's so many things that have to go on there, and there's so many different things that need to be created or content that needs to be put together. But I also want to say that there are a few different pathways to go when it comes to having a website based on where you are within your journey. So how I always like to explain it to people is there's a one-page website and then there's a multi-page website. Multi-page websites, what I would recommend is if there are speakers who have a number of different types of audiences. So for example, maybe you speak to universities, and then also maybe you speak to entrepreneurs or business owners. That's one example of where a multi-page website would be most effective for you because you want to make sure you're leading people in the right location. Another example would be like if you have multiple different types of service offerings. So like you speak and you also have a program and maybe you also have a course of some type. That would be another great example for a multi-page website. Now, of course, if you have more things going on, that's going to be more content that you'll have on your pages, more information that's going to be put on there. So it can feel like a bigger undertaking. But for anyone who is more like they have like one single objective. So like back to our example of doing like you want someone to complete your contact form. That is like your main thing. You want them to get on the phone. I would recommend them going to a one-page website. And the reason why is it gives you a lot more flexibility whenever it comes to making changes or being agile with shifting content on your website quickly. There's a lot less imagery that's required in that regard. So it's a lot easier, I would say, to have visuals that look pristine and not have to manage so many different things on your website. So that's what I would say in regards to like, are the visuals on your website important and should they be like high quality? Yes, definitely. And there are ways that you can make it easier for yourself based on where you are within your journey.
And what's so cool about what you just said is it's really like meet you where you're at type of philosophy here, because everybody comes to the table with different assets and resources and things that work to their benefit or challenges that they specifically have to overcome. And part of what's difficult is like, do I need to have professional headshots or whatever, is that it's such a spectrum, and trying to even compare what one thing could be versus another is totally different. Like very professional, clear headshots from 5 years ago are probably worse than a brand new headshot taken with an iPhone 13 Pro. Like the technology changes so fast. So there really is like just like look at the resources and assets that you have and use those to the best of your ability. And that's probably going to be enough. And it's certainly like, if you look at the whole spectrum, going to be a lot better than a lot of the people that don't. I think maybe my point that I try to make frequently, and maybe you would agree with this too, is that done, not perfect is really important when it comes to websites. Like, because it's better to just get something out there and then be able to start the process of iteration than it would be to sit on your hands for 2 years while you're waiting for the perfect storm, which may never even happen in the first place.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. And also that is something actually I learned from one of my marketing mentors, is that your website is a work that is in a constant iterative process. And I think just knowing that in general is like really freeing. I know for myself and also for a lot of people, because we come to the table thinking that our websites have to be perfect. Like it has to be this perfect out of the box thing or else it's just not going to work. And when you realize that your website is literally an ongoing, changing, evolving thing, it brings so much freedom, and it also gives you like permission to change things and to be willing to improve and to grow and, you know, do all the things that are going to lead to new levels of growth and success as a speaker. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, heck yeah, it is freeing and allows you to grow into it. You know, I think where, at least from my perspective, you know, that the whole philosophy of it being done, you don't want a website to go stagnant, right? Just set it and forget it. You want to be actively involved with improving it the entire time. And I think like it's pretty easy for people just to put something up and then not worry about it and then not even address it. And then the resistance to then address it at some point in time is way higher than you otherwise would. Like just going in and leveling your expectations that your website is an iterative process, and that is totally okay. It's very freeing, and it empowers you, you know, to make changes and try new things and maybe go from a one page to a multi-page when the time is right. And you can start somewhere or build upon what you have. It's less cart before the horse scenario. You can just get something up, start getting, you know, some traction from it, and, you know, iterate from there. So one thing that's come to mind though, for those with current websites, like as an expert yourself, Danielle, what is one thing you usually find is like low hanging fruit for somebody to improve their website? So one piece of tactical advice you have, somebody has a website currently, what's the most common low hanging fruit you see to improve that website? I'm not talking like full overhaul here, creating new pages. What's a small-ish tweak that somebody can make to just take it that extra step?
Yes. I would say having a core value proposition on your homepage. And
nice.
For anyone listening who doesn't know what a core value proposition is, it's basically a one-liner statement that says what you do, who you serve, and what value that you bring to the table. So a lot of times what I've seen speakers who may have done their own website, like at the top, it'll say speaker, author, award-winning keynote speaker, you know, like all of the things that they've done. Whereas when someone first comes to your website, they want to know how you can help them and how you can solve their problem. So when someone comes to your homepage and you have your core value proposition at the top, the very first thing that they see, I support X type of people and help them to accomplish this type of specific result, that automatically lets them know that they're in the right place, number one. And then number two, they're now interested to learn more about how you're the expert that can help to solve the problem that they have, which in turn, out of, you know, curiosity, they'll stay on your site longer. They'll look around. They'll see, oh, like what more can I learn? How can I be connected with this individual? So I think being very intentional with having a clear core value proposition statement at the top of your website and making it very clear who you serve and what you do and how you can help them to see the results that they want is a really great first step to improve any website and its effectiveness along the way.
Love that.
Perfect.
Man. What a solid bullet to shoot out of your already amazing website knowledge gun. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I think it's one of the missing pieces too. A lot of the time, you know, it's to your point earlier. It's this is who I am. This is what I've done, and not this is the problem I solve. And I think sometimes it's easy, like especially as a thought leader, you label yourself. I speak, I coach, I consult, or I do all of these different things. I'm an online course creator, whatever. But that's just how you deliver the solution to the problem that your clients have. It's not your entire world, you know. Your entire world is the problems you solve. And I think we all start a business to solve a problem, you know, and I think getting to the root of that to put on the front page of our website, it's a little bit of a journey, but we definitely don't want to talk about ourselves right away. We want to talk about them and frame it up for them. So yeah. I love that advice. And what a cool episode, Danielle. I mean, I love how simple you make things. Austin and I talk about all the time, the definition of an expert is someone who can take something super abstract and break it down into super tactical and tangible advice. So this has been super awesome. And as you know, of course, since you're here, we're all about creating value for our listeners. So what are you working on right now that everyone can benefit from?
Yeah, so I'm really happy to share. And also, thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun. I love keeping things simple. It's like, it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be made a lot simpler than, it might feel like or maybe appear to be. But in terms of what I'm working on right now, I have a special project for any new or aspiring speakers who might need to get a website up and running. It's called speakerwebsitemadeeasy.com. And it is a done for you website template. It takes 3 to 5 business days, and my team and I will get it created, set up, and launched out, and ready for you to use within under a week. So that's what I have been working on for any new or aspiring speakers. And then for those speakers who are more seasoned, maybe they're like, wow, I think I might need to like revamp or rebrand, or you just aren't sure what that might look like for you. I would love to invite everyone to check out my website at professionalspeakerwebsites.com, where I'd love to support you with any website analysis or support that you could need there. And also, one more thing I wanted to share. I have a free resource that I know could be really valuable for everyone listening. It's called the Profitable Website Blueprint. And in it, I share my number one strategies for how to craft a website that's going to intentionally lead people to take the action that you want them to take and get you booked to speak. So I'm sure you'll include that within the show notes. But for anyone who's listening and you might just want to type it in your phone, it's bit.ly /profitable-website-blueprint. So that's the overall URL.
Heck yeah. Super. We will make sure those are in the show notes. Definitely check it out. All 3 links will be in there, everybody. Danielle, thank you so much for being on Technically Speaking. And guys, if you like this episode, don't forget to rate it, like it, subscribe to it. And if you want more awesome resources like this, go to speakerflow.com/resources.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in today. Check the show notes for more info and see you next time. Later.